Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 148, and it's February. It's Black History Month, so last week we did Cyborg, and this week we're doing Black Bolt. He's not black, but he's got black in his name.
I feel like there's some major societal repercussions about that, but it's a little beyond me right now.
Hashtag Inhuman Lives Matter.
Oh, wow. And this concludes Capes on the Couch Run. Thank you, everyone. We've
just been canceled. So a quick reminder to get those questions into us for the 150th episode mailbag /AMA. You can send them to us via email at capesonthecouch@gmail.com, or you can tweet them to us along with your hate mail, and or send us a Facebook DM. And also, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, if you haven't already, go back and listen to episode 68 on Medusa, Black Bolt's wife, for a better understanding of their dynamic. And that is going to come into play, particularly as it relates to the skit when we get to that point. So, Blackagar Boltagon is his full name, which is just so ridiculous. So ridiculous. But Black Bolt, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Fantastic Four, number 45, December of 1965. Black Bolt is the king of the Inhumans. So he was exposed to Terrigen Mists in utero because his parents were geneticists on the High Council of the Inhuman people. And his voice has the ability to create massive destructive waves of energy because it manipulates electrons in some fashion. I forget exactly how that plays out. So he was placed in a soundproof chamber and taught to control his voice even while sleeping. And this happens from birth. That literally from the time he is born until he's about 19 years old, he is trained copiously every day to not make a sound. Not a cough, not a sneeze, not a clearing of the throat, nothing. All right, this guy makes Marcel look like a chump. So he re-enters Inhuman society at 19, and his brother Maximus, who we really do need to do one of these days. I think we said that in the Medusa episode.
Oh, yes.
So Maximus makes a deal with the Kree to take over the Inhuman society. So Black Bolt shouts at the Kree ship, which crashes on the Inhuman parliament, killing his parents. The sound also drives Maximus mad, and he swears revenge on Black Bolt. So he ends up engaged to his distant cousin Medusa, who would visit him in confinement, and they fell in love because this is, some ancient European corollary type stuff where, yeah, that's okay. Cousins can get married and become members of the royal family. That's not creepy at all. So he and Medusa oversee the assimilation of Inhumans into the larger world and engage with many heroes and villains in the universe, because previously they had been kind of not necessarily sequestered or isolated, but they were keeping themselves separate from the rest of humanity to more observe, and they were living in their enlightened society, which has its own caste problems and things of that nature. So he has a child with Medusa in defiance of the genetic council, who believed that his bloodline was too dangerous to continue. So he gave up his crown to be with his son, Ahura. But he regains the crown, and he helps the Inhumans resettle on the blue area of the moon. And so then he was a member of the Illuminati, which is a secret group of highly intelligent and powerful individuals that attempted to manipulate events in the Marvel 616 universe from behind the scenes. This came to the forefront in World War Hulk when they exiled Hulk from the planet and Bruce came back seeking revenge. It was later revealed that this was actually a Skrull imposter, and the real Black Bolt had been kidnapped sometime before.
Hashtag because comics.
So he plays a major role in Infinity, as he was the one who discovered Thanos' plan to kill his son Thane, who also had some Inhuman genes. So in Inhumans versus X-Men, Black Bolt's use of his sonic scream on Cyclops is what kicked off the major war, except it was actually a mental projection of Cyclops created by Emma Frost, as Scott had died due to the exposure to the Terrigen Mists, because Scott is a dick. And in the death of the Inhumans, he has his throat slit by Vox, who's one of the main villains of the story, but he's still able to use his scream to escape imprisonment and join the royal family in attacking the Kree. This has permanently damaged his voice, however, and I really glossed over a ton of the storylines. A lot of interactions with the Fantastic Four, a lot of interactions with the Avengers. Black Bolt, as the head of the Inhuman royal family, has played a prominent role in pretty much every Inhuman storyline that has existed over the past 60 years. But if you want to do a major deep dive on the Inhumans, go check out Geek History Lesson podcast or read up on fandom. There's a whole extensive write-up on Black Bolt's history. We're not that kind of show. We wanted to get into the issues. And since this is a Matt selected episode, he has a lengthy write-up of his own.
Woohoo! I'm serious. I get so excited about this.
Oh, I know. I love Matt's write-ups every time. And I'm not just saying that because he's in the live stream listening. So the theme for the issues is communication. And we're going to get to that in just a sec. But Matt's write-up, Black Bolt, Blackagar, Boltagon. From the first time I read the classic Lee Kirby Fantastic Four run, he has always fascinated me. The basic building block of social interaction among humans, and insofar as we know Inhumans, is speech. From a philosophical standpoint, there is no organized society without verbal communication. It's everything. It is the singular most important element that serves to bring people together to work as one for a common purpose. So you take a person who, it's not like he's unable to speak through deafness from birth, restricting his ability to absorb what speech should sound like, or throat cancer, or an injury to the larynx, or something similar preventing his vocal cords from functioning properly. He is fully capable of exercising that most basic tenement of social interaction. But if he utters even the slightest whisper, even by accident, if he coughs or sneezes, he can destroy everything and everyone around him. There's no established canon limit on what the power of his voice can actually accomplish, but everyone pretty much understands even the slightest sound from him is potentially catastrophic. As if going through life from birth, having to engage in so much rigorous physical and psychological training to never utter a sound, not even accidentally in your sleep, wouldn't create enough issues for you. Let's add on to that. You're the king of an entire race of people, entrusted with all the responsibilities of governing and the expectations of leadership that entails. Oh, and you accidentally killed the primary support system you had in your parents when you found your brother forging a pact with the aliens who were directly responsible for your powers and understandably lashed out. Holy crap. How the man didn't become a gibbering wreck with a death wish as soon as he was old enough to fully grasp all this stuff is the stuff of miracles. I think the fact that Black Bolt even functions at all, much less as well as he does given the circumstances, is a testament to just how well the guy's got it all together. So let's try to run down what I'm sure is not a complete list of this man's issues. And the first one, severe isolation. Your Terrigenesis turned you into a potential weapon of mass destruction on a civilization-ending scale. You spent most of your life from that point on having to be in complete isolation from others and undergoing rigorous physical and psychological training to never utter the slightest of sounds with your voice, even by accident. Just communicating yourself, your feelings, your wants, and your needs to other people is a grueling exercise at best. You have to constantly make yourself understood to others in a way they typically don't. Think of all the things this implies. Doc, take it away.
My goodness. So just even hearing that, because I'll be very honest, I didn't get a chance to read this ahead of time. So as Anthony is saying it to me and I'm reading on our notes, this is my first exposure to it. And that was even overwhelming for me to even comprehend. So let's piece it out. A person that is capable of speech, but for whatever reason has to remain silent. That is not something that is easily done. If you don't believe me, please go to your local school safely, not trespassing, and just observe any of the classes. And by the way, I don't just mean elementary school. I don't just mean middle school. I don't just mean junior high or high school. I also mean college. I also mean graduate schools. It's every school I've ever been in. Professors that are younger than some of the students have to tell them to be quiet while they're talking. It is human nature for us to simply say what is on our minds. Not everything. Not everything, but there is always considered a certain amount of chatter that's supposed to happen because that is pretty much our currency. I'm not talking money. I'm saying that's pretty much how society gets anything done. And thankfully, we found ways to extend the use of it. Thanks to everyone looking at this live stream. Thanks to everyone listening to this podcast. Thanks for Matt for writing this down. So, yes, we do come across things that are shortcuts, but it doesn't have the one thing in the way that we would really want it that we just can't match, and that's emotion. So a key component to this, when you take away a person's voice that has one, we're talking traditional ability to speak, you aren't able to use emotion the same way. And think for yourself, when you've typed something out angrily and you're bashing the keys or writing with a pen and you start to get an almost arthritic feeling in your wrist, or maybe that's just me, or no one's around and you decide that you're just going to yell out because you figure, well, at least nobody's going to hear it. It's still not the same. You want the response. You want to see the person's face. You want to hear the other person's voice. You want to hear the content. You want all of it. You want reciprocity. That's basically what you want. You want to acknowledge that there is someone else that has a similarity to me, that even if they don't agree with a single thing that I say, they've at least heard it. And that's been eliminated from the start. How emotionally stunting would that be? In theory, because Black Bolt is not written that way. Thank goodness for his sake. But the idea also, and this is much more metaphorical because we don't really encounter this specific circumstance, but we know that words have meaning and we know that words have power. And knowing that you have to bite your tongue, you have to make sure that every word that you say is properly couched, that you have to be diplomatic. You sometimes may come across as wishy-washy, or sometimes you have to play up that you're a straight shooter and you just get down to business. You change the inflection of your tone, you change your mannerisms, you change your posture, all of it. Anthony and I do this for the sake of the podcast when we're doing the skits. And so far the feedback has been positive because it's a way for us to once again show emotion. Take all of that and mix the idea that you have to remain silent for the sake of either, it could be for secrecy, let's say, for more real purposes, not just comics, or because you have to wait for the right moment, whatever. And you don't really get the opportunity to have the emotional outlet that would allow you to have. Oh boy, that, in my opinion, that can lead to a lot of resentment. That can lead to a lot of disgust, a lot of anger. Going on for too long, that could lead to a lot of depression, self-inflicted isolation. I mean, that gets back to Matt's point with that side of it. Because when people do that too much, it doesn't sound like a choice anymore. It sounds like a conscious reality of life that people don't have to listen to you because you just don't have anything to say. And that's really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. He also brings up in the live chat, how many times have we all tried to be sarcastic over text or online and it didn't land as such? That was my entire relationship with my one ex-girlfriend. I was making jokes and she was like, what is that supposed to mean? It was a joke. And now I have to explain it, which means it's not funny. And then we get into an argument because why are you making those comments? Why are you trying to be sarcastic? Because this is who I am. And that's why we lasted all of 6 weeks, because I was like, I can't spend my life doing this with someone. Either you get it or you don't. But I mean, it's the truth. There's so much there that if you're constantly having to fight to be understood, you're just going to withdraw because you think people don't get you. And unfortunately, we see so much of that now online. Dare I say, it's a lot of what makes up some of these horrible online communities. I'm not going to name any specific ones, but they gather together because they feel that no one else understands them and that they need to seek out like-minded people. It leads to some frightening and potentially horrible things being said and or done because of that. And I'm talking like really, really deep stuff. I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody. I'm speaking about specific communities, but I'm trying not to name names because I don't want to give them any more light or credibility than I think they need to. But in any case, yeah, really, really horrifying stuff when you think about the analogs to all of that. So the second one, and again, Matt, crippling guilt at the very real consequences your powers have brought. You don't have to imagine what will happen if you slip up. You know full well. You killed your parents with your voice. You didn't mean to. It was an accident, but it happened. You have a family. You have a wife. You have people that you care about who will absolutely be reduced to a fine pink mist by a weapon that is of your person, your very essence of being that you have almost no control over. That is a gorgon that will haunt your soul forever. The guilt over what he has done and what he is capable of from the slightest thing. Most of us operate with some room. There's wiggle room. There's a leash that we're not beholden as soon as something is done. Well, that's it. There's a buffer there. So we can act and we can maneuver, understanding that even if we push too far, we can come back and address it. There'll be repercussions, of course, but they're not going to be world ending. Black Bolt does not have the luxury of any buffer, of any freedom whatsoever. He has lived it and he continues to live it on a daily basis.
I have to be very careful with this because I have to protect people's rights. So I can't give many details. Offline, I've had this conversation with Anthony about a particular situation, mainly for my own psyche, because there is no great way to deal with these things. But I'm just going to point directly to consequence. So I'm going to use a slightly different example. Once again, just changing details. I've had patients that have done some horrible things. And that includes a situation where human tragedy has happened. I'm just going to leave it at that. There was genuine remorse for things that have happened, and there are other circumstances above and beyond what I'm going to get into detail about. But I can tell you that person basically says every day that they wake up, they realize that it's not just whether or not it's a gift, it's a burden, because they're alive and someone else is not. And it's literally a 1-for-1 trade in their mind. And it's a horrible thing that they have to, in theory, put themselves through every single day for the rest of their life. So the idea that there have been negative consequences because of actions is one thing. And that's bad enough. Let's say it's in the matter of the line of duty. Let's say it's a matter of a police officer that shoots someone. Let's say it's just an unfortunate situation. If you're a truck driver and someone in the dead of night, not because you were speeding, you're following all regulations, the other person is drunk, stumbles into the road, and you hit them and they end up with severe injuries, not even a matter of death. There's been no evidence to show that you did any wrongdoing, but you now have to get back in your rig for that next time. Anytime you see a pedestrian that even comes close to the sidewalk, like veering off, not necessarily because they're trying to go into you or anything, but can you imagine the thoughts that a person has at that moment? Just trying to recognize that the things that we take for granted sometimes in what our day-to-day activities are supposed to be, or the emotional responses that we have to really continue to try and synergize and tie all these things together, since we're talking about communication, all of this is supposed to go off without a hitch because it normally does. These are often outlier situations, and yet the greatest fear is what if? What if it happens again? What if it's the repeat? No one's ever going to have forgiveness for that. And it's not actually the fear of the repercussion per se. It's just the knowledge as a human being that we are supposed to propagate the species, not end it. Anything that leads to the harm of others, regardless of intentions, tends to create an emotional reaction that often matches the intensity of the circumstance. And if it doesn't, then that usually tends to point out some sort of personality pathology. The problem is that although time, they says, heals all wounds, maybe so, but doggone does it leave deep scars. If that's the case, then knowing that every time that circumstance comes up, every time that situation comes up, your very first basic schema is, okay, similar to doctors actually, do no harm. Like whatever you do, don't screw this up. But we all know that that type of negativistic thinking can just feed in on itself. Although you may get the feedback, okay, nothing bad happened this time. It's like, right, because I purposely applied that thought that I couldn't screw it up. So my job is not to screw up. That's it. That actually starts to become the beginning and the end. Whatever you do, just don't screw up. Don't screw up. You woke up this morning, don't screw up. You're going to work now, don't screw up. You're coming home now, don't screw up. You're going to be talking to your family now, don't screw up. What if you have an anger problem? What if you actually had domestic violence issues? That's literally, to take some of the words we talked about with Black Bolt, every grunt that you make now is a potential threat. Every time you sound a little off in your voice, that's putting fear in people's minds. Every time you groan or just let out that long sigh, people think it may be the end of their world. Sometimes these aren't just analogies, even if we're not just talking about the electrons that the voice is supposed to represent.
And the idea of walking around and constantly saying, don't screw up, don't screw up. If so much of your life is defined by either a failure that happened or the potential for failure, if that becomes your entire being, then there is no room for success. There's no way for you to feel joy. There's no way for you to feel pride. There's no way for you to feel any real positive emotion because your entire existence is defined by negativity. And so there's no absence of that. There's no room for growth. And that is very heavy stuff. And I dare say that unfortunately there are many people walking this world today with those thoughts who do not have Black Bolt's power, do not have the ability to destroy a world with a sound, but still carry around those perpetual intrusive thoughts of don't screw up, don't get this wrong. Matt says, this is what I imagine a police officer or firefighter's life is like. My father was a fireman for 25 years. I will tell you, at least from that perspective, I can't necessarily speak to police. From the perspective of a lifelong firefighter, he focused on all the people that he saved and all the good that he was able to do. Come to think of it, I don't honestly know if we've ever had a discussion about any of the losses that I'm certain that he encountered. I mean, he was a fireman in Irvington, New Jersey, which for those of you that don't know, it's a very urban area. It's a large-ish city. I'm certain that he encountered loss. I'm certain that he was in a fire where people were unfortunately died. But I don't know that in my almost 40 years of life that I've ever had a conversation with him about that, because knowing my father, he's not the type who would bring that up voluntarily. But the stories that he does tell are largely either about the people he was able to save or the cast of characters that he worked with in the firehouse. That's the overwhelming majority of my father's stories involve someone playing a prank in the firehouse, and usually alcohol was involved. And yes, these are the people tasked with saving lives. Food for thought. But I know, at least from his perspective, he doesn't dwell on any of the losses that he encountered, because I don't know that he would have been able to come home with himself if he dwelled on that. And that's not who my father is, just in general. As much as my father loves to complain about stuff, he's not, and I say that and half in jest, he's not the type to dwell on things of that nature. So I can't imagine that he is going to spend a lot of time thinking about all the people that he couldn't save, because that's not who he is. Having said that, I'm also willing to say with 99.99% certainty that there are people out there who do, in fact, dwell on that there are first responders who do unfortunately succumb to that constant thought of, I couldn't save this person. I couldn't save them. I couldn't help these people. And it eats at them. I know this. I know this for a fact. And I'm sure, Doc, you've encountered many of them in your line of work as well. They are out there. And I mean, this is one of many reasons why I say we need to provide better counseling services for our first responders, irrespective of COVID, that just based on the nature of their work, that they need the counseling services to be able to continue to do what is a very vital, important job in society. But back to that point, that if you're constantly thinking of all that negativity, you don't allow yourself any room for growth. You don't allow yourself any grace, and you don't allow yourself any mercy to understand and acknowledge that there were a multitude of circumstances beyond your specific actions that led to whatever the negative result was. And the vast majority of those circumstances were outside of your control. And so you have to allow yourself that grace. And I think if you boil that down to a non-emergency response, that there are many things, we were just talking last week about Cyborg and trying to live a life without regrets. We all have regrets. It's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the human condition. But you have to allow yourself that grace on the smaller scale to forgive yourself for the things that were outside of your control. Unfortunately, Black Bolt's not in a situation where he can do that, but we are. And so that's something that we need to keep in mind and be mindful of if we ever start getting those thoughts welling up inside our brains, as we all are wont to do. So issue number 3, overwhelming responsibility. You are not just trying to function as a part of society you can't realistically fit into. You are its king. Every one of your people looks to you for leadership, and you have to run your society and make your wishes known without being able to easily communicate them. When you have to have a conversation with other people where you don't know what you're going to have to communicate in advance, you are fully reliant on others that you have to place your trust in to communicate for you. Spoiler alert, this is a large part of the skit, with all the lack of nuance that implies. Really in the skit. You don't just not have a physical voice. You don't have a metaphorical one either. It's Medusa or Professor X or someone else you have a psychic connection with acting on your behalf. That's terrifying on a deep personal level. Like I said, the fact that this man functions at all is a great credit to his incredible mental fortitude.
Amen to that. I really think that encapsulates that particular issue. And I don't know if I have much to add. I will say, though, and this is where I get into this terrifying realm that sometimes I say things and, like, in retrospect, people will come up to me and say that I really messed them up, and that's not my goal. That's what we're doing with each other every day. What do I mean? You do not have a full access conversation with every person that you know every waking second of their life. But they have one of you. They have their representation of you. They have their memories of whatever experiences and interactions that they've had with you in the past. They have whatever you have on social media. They have whatever formats that you've used outside of social media. If you've written things down, if you've left voicemails, if you have books, if you've done any form of public media, TV, radio, et cetera, and the people that know you that may have interacted with you that have therefore interacted with that other person, and they give their representation of you. And you know this happens because we all have conversations about other people that aren't around us at the time, not to gossip. I'm not saying it necessarily in a negative way, but just to talk about the fact that we know each other. It's just what we do. It's a good part of how our society has lasted for as long as it has. So the fact that you are never going to be the perfect representation that someone has already set in their mind, that is a very heady thing to ever have to think about if you put it in the forefront of your consciousness. And I don't recommend that you automatically do that unless you're preparing for like a business meeting or a presentation or something like that where the stakes are much higher. Anything else that really shouldn't be at the forefront, you should just be who you want to be and say what you want to say. But man, oh man, that's why, as had been pointed out before, we get so many things wrong in different formats when the person's not there. It's because our brain doesn't work that way. We are not recorders. We are interpreters. We take what is around us and only have our view of it based on what has already been processed with a lot of chemicals in our system that are natural to us, and for some of us, maybe a little unnatural. I'm not trying to pick sides on that. But really, we're always creating this imperfect canvas and painting on it and repainting on it. And then when the person that originally was trying to give us all the feedback comes back and says, this isn't me. Well, it was to me based on what you said before. Anything that's changed, you're going to give new information. But it's not adversarial like that. It's just simply updating the last conversation you had. If you had it yesterday, fine, not much information. If it was 5 months ago, maybe a lot of information, but maybe you don't have that much time. So it's going to be incomplete information. And guess what our brains do? They fill in the gaps. So yes, it's terrifying if you are in a situation with Black Bolt is, where you are having direct conversations, but you still can't control them because someone else has to do that for you. Foreign language interpretation is definitely one of the worst areas in mental health when it comes to miscommunication. And I deal with this. Thankfully, we have video interpreters now, which is definitely better. And it's immediate as well, as opposed to having to try and find an interpreter either in person and then waiting for them for the next day. Imagine that. You're in the hospital and you have to wait until the next day to make sure that you understand what a person is saying to you. That sounds terrifying to me. And then in addition to that, once the person is there, you have to trust that other person that they are actually doing what they're supposed to, which is just simply give the information as to what you're saying, not trying to put their political spin, their personal spin, their emotional, cultural spin. Ooh, boy, that's a huge task for any human being to do on a reliable, regular basis. Thankfully, they are trained at that. But I can guarantee, I shouldn't say guarantee, I can close to guarantee. See, I'm already doing it. I can close to guarantee that most family members aren't. And yet those are the people that we rely on when we go to the store, if they speak a different language. Or if there's, for whatever reason, a person wasn't able to say what they wanted to say to that coworker that they wanted to talk to. So they give you a message and it becomes a game of telephone later on. And you hear the rumor that got spread about you because of what you said to that person that is totally inaccurate from what you actually said. So yes, it is terrifying when Black Bolt goes through it because it's so direct. But in all honesty, that's everything that we do in life. And it is every interaction. And somehow we haven't managed to kill each other. So I think we actually do a pretty good job. I'll leave it on a positive note.
Well, I was going to say the very fact that there's a game called Telephone shows the inherent nature in how easily spoken communication can be manipulated. Just the very nature of the game is you're trying to repeat whatever was said to you correctly. Now, do you want to mess with it? You know, certainly there's an element of randomness, but again, that's inherent to spoken communication. But that every day we're constantly, in essence, playing a game of telephone, sometimes with our own brains. I mean, if you really want to think about it that way, that how many times have we said, there's a thought, I just don't have the words for it, because there's a disconnect between your brain and your own friggin' mouth as to how do you correctly interpret what it is that you want to say. So if your brain and your mouth can't agree on what it is that you want to say, I think it's very difficult for us to be able to expect that what two people say to each other is going to convey with 100% certainty everything that they're trying to get across.
So, but the best example I think of this at the scale that Matt was talking about, I'll admit, I don't know that much about this coach, but he has done TV and radio after he retired as a coach. He coached the Baltimore Ravens when they crushed the New York Giants in the Super Bowl, Brian Billick. And he described when he became head coach, he said, I used to have sideline conversations with other staff members. And I would say like, oh, we probably should have a pre-meeting about this so that, the linebackers are all on the same page. And it would be like, oh, that's nice. He pointed out that he had made a comment during a practice, like the first week he was head coach. And that next week on a Monday morning, he got a phone call saying, Coach, you're late for the meeting. And he's like, what meeting? He was told that he had just ordered the entire offensive line or something to have an extra video session, like just going over film. And he's like, I said that to the towel manager that I think we need to get the offensive line more organized. And all of a sudden it's another committee. He's like, how does this happen? And so he basically said from then on, he would keep his mouth shut unless he was in a meeting. if he was around other staff, he wouldn't say anything. Because the second that he said something, people would think, well, he's the boss, so that must be what we have to do. And they would put their own interpretation on it. So just to speak to it, like, it's not just, I know I try and make sure we relate to as many people in their basic lives as possible, but holy crap, when you get up to higher levels like that, and that's true for government too, I'm not going to, say that it's just in comics. Yeah, I think this happens a lot. I'm just not going to get into the whole paranoid realm because I want to keep my sanity.
Whatever sanity you have left. Whatever sanity any of us have left, frankly, at this point. So we're going to take a break. We're going to plug our sponsor, BetterHelp. When we get back, we will get into treatment. Stay tuned.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your individual needs and match you with a licensed professional therapist. You can begin communicating within 48 hours.
It isn't a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp has a network of over 15,000 counselors with a broad range of expertise. You can log in and message your counselor anytime and get timely and thoughtful responses. You can also schedule regular video or phone sessions. No waiting room required.
BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if you feel you don't have a good connection. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial help is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/capes, that's better HELP, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional.
Special offer for Capes on the Couch fans. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/capes.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maddie.
Do you like horror movies?
I sure do.
Well, did you know that most horror movies are inspired by real-life horror?
Really? Like what?
Well, take The Shining, for instance. That's based on Stephen King's real-life addictions, or The Purge, which could be our country any minute now.
Oh, and The Strangers, which is based on a real-life murder. People should be talking about these things.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, Producer Michael.
Hi.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but somebody already is. It's you.
That's right. We are Friday the 13th, the podcast where we talk about horror in real life and horror in media, all from an LGBTQ perspective.
Because we gay, y'all.
We are proud members of the Legion Podcast Network, and we can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come along with us on this crazy journey, and as always,
Get slayed.
Hi, this is Al Ewing, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
And we're back. So in-universe treatment, and this is something that I had discussed with Doc beforehand because I have read a lot more Inhumans and Inhuman adjacent books than Doc has, so I was able to fill him in on some of the ways in which Doc in-universe can communicate with Black Bolt directly without the need of other interpreters and other people necessary.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to expand on it. And we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but the whole point of, yes, finding some area where he can just speak without the repercussions of significant damage. That's fantastic. And I relish that idea. The thing that I'll admit I'm not good at, but I think Black Bolt is even worse at, I want long form. Because when you have to rely on interpretation all the time, you learn very quickly. And actually, professional interpreters will say this if you've ever had to go through this yourself. Please speak slowly and in short sentences and allow me to have pauses and potential interruptions. That means you're going to have a certain cadence that doesn't allow for quote unquote speeches, if you know what I'm saying. It's much more staccato. Very start and stop, get one thought out, let it finish, then get the next thought out, which can make speech much more intentional, and that can be helpful, but it's not the stream of consciousness. And sorry if that sounds a little too woo-woo for you, but it's not allowing for the creativity and emotional expression that free-flowing thought is provided for when you're allowed to speak the way I am now with that kind of sort of endearing rambling that I do. That is a real pain in the ass for Anthony to edit. It still is a way for someone to put things together that they may not put together otherwise in their own head. And it's why I do it. I do this and think this way, regardless of if there's anything to record people. That's a scary thought, isn't it? But that's true. This really is how I process stuff. I just don't say it out loud. But Black Bolt, that's all he ever does because that's all he ever can do with other people. So you got to imagine he hasn't developed that. Just go ahead. Metaphors, anything. Oh, I just see Matt said, and don't use idioms. Yes, that's absolutely true. You cannot take colloquial phrases. That's the worst thing you can do if you have to rely on someone to interpret your words. But that's what needs to develop because I think that would increase his enjoyment of life as a whole. At least that's my thought.
No, it's a very valid point indeed. And I find myself editing out so many gaps in my speech in the podcast because I'm trying to speak efficiently and not ramble on. I don't think you ramble that much, Doc, and certainly it's not as much of a pain in the ass to edit out as when you inevitably just sort of drop your voice like that. That's way more of a pain in the ass to edit out. Keep it at 100. So I do that certainly while speaking in the show is I will take that extra second and say, what am I going to say? But yes, to your point, using all of the words that you can to properly convey all of your thoughts. This is why I have, I don't want to say controversial, but interesting opinions on the use of profanity, specifically as it relates to expression, because my mindset is the English language is a palette of vast colors, and the words that we use are intended to paint the full tapestry of our respective thoughts. Why am I going to arbitrarily eliminate some of those colors from my vocabulary just because they may offend some potential sensibilities? If I need to incorporate a particularly striking color or phrase in my speech, then I'm going to use it. And I'm going to use it to make that point. Now, I've said before that people who consistently use profanity on a regular basis without any regard for its impact, I don't think that highly of them. But I'm not going to go clutching at my pearls if someone uses the F word to convey, to punctuate a thought, because it gets your attention and it proves the point.
Anthony, I didn't know you had pearls. See. Yeah, just saying.
But that proves, but there again, that gets back to the point of Black Bolt needs to use all of his words. And if Black Bolt wants to curse, let him curse. If he wants to ramble and do stream of consciousness, let him do it. Go for it. Put him in that situation where he has to, because efficient language is not comprehensive language. You lose something there. There's something to be said for the fact that novels are still read regularly, even though we have access to text. And I think there's something to be said for forcing people to write long form and forcing people to speak and communicate in long form, because we're so used to text, tweets, short captions, TLDR. Give me some long form stuff. Give me a long story. Elaborate, paint a picture, bring me in, because it's more engaging. Yes, Matt, language is a poor enough form of communication as it is. We need to use every word we've got. And to that I say, right. So out of universe, what does a therapist do with a patient that is mute by choice was sort of our thought. And then Matt says the real world parallels we talked about before: deaf, hard of hearing, and mute people, stroke victims, people with throat cancer, or something else that necessitates an electronic voice box. Hell, I'll even go so far as people residing in a country where they don't speak the prevailing language and are reliant upon interpreters to perform basic interactions with others. It can be a constant, nonstop, terrifying journey through life when you just can't communicate with others on your own. And like I said, I plead ignorance, but I assume non-communicative people need psychological counseling. I just have no idea how that's done when verbal communication is such a vital part of the process.
And,
so,
yeah.
Blink 1 for yes and 2 for no, or
yes,
one light for yes, 2 lights for no.
Yep.
Like the Star Trek. Yeah. Captain Pike, I think.
Yeah, and that's the part where we have to be honest with ourselves. It's a matter of just how inaccurate do we want to be? do we ever want to get to 60%? And I apologize if that sounds very cruel or rude. It's not meant to. It's pointing out that we want to be non-zero. It's unfortunate because, yes, all that nuance is lost. It comes down to yes and no questions. Well, first of all, it also comes down to the psychological component as to whether or not the person, as Anthony pointed out, we also were talking about selective mutism, the idea that a person just simply is not speaking. I have to discern as a professional if that is a choice that has been made due to fear, if it's anxiety, trauma, if it's depression, psychosis, because the person is paranoid. Is the person internally preoccupied, meaning they're hallucinating? There's a lot of psychiatric reasons as to why a person is not speaking, and medical reasons as well, as has already been mentioned. So from that standpoint, that's something that I do all the time. And believe it or not, if it is something where the person is what we call in a quote unquote catatonic state, it means that they have demonstrated the ability to communicate at a proficiency for their education level and is simply not doing it at the time. And it appears to be a consequence of severe depression or psychotic illness. There is medication for it. Usually it's a benzodiazepine, not to play favorites on it. But the point is, it's amazing how people that haven't talked for a week all of a sudden start getting more active and talking again as if nothing ever happened. Or some people do have recollection of what happened and are like, wow, that was weird. It's nice to see. So those are one of the rare times where if you catch an audience, what I mean by that is if you get new staff that haven't had a case like that, you have medical students or nursing students that haven't had a case like that, and you just say, just prescribe this medication, and you check back the next day and they're like, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a really cool feeling. But I personally actually get the opposite response. So I intentionally tell everyone ahead of time what I think is going to happen. And when it happens, it's like, oh, you were right. It's like, okay, that's a little better, because I don't like the dramatic responses. But enough about me. I'm sorry. I apologize. To get back to the other point, Anthony hit it right on the head. It's just, what is the person's level of communication, and making sure that you delegate enough time so that you can ask as many questions as possible. And it's amazing how creative a person can be in terms of making something a yes or no question. And Anthony, as an attorney, although I know you're not a trial attorney, I'm saying, like, in law school, I don't know if they go over those sorts of things, because I can't imagine. That's not really my job in general. It's to actually have people expound, not to diminish. And yet that's what you're doing. You're diminishing the possibilities for how a person responds to every aspect of their life, which, that's pretty arduous.
Absolutely. It's difficult just to communicate. Again, it's difficult to communicate sometimes with people who speak your own language.
Yeah.
Never mind someone who can't or won't.
Yeah. So here's the other issue with this. There are ways to get around it, but once again, it depends on the availability of what the person has. So if the person has physical communication, that's great. You have someone write things down. It's slower, but yes, it can be done. Typing can be done. All of that. Wonderful. Full use of language. Okay, great. You lose the emotional subtleties, nuance, etc. We already discussed that.
Cadence.
Yeah. Here's the other big problem, though. What if they don't have that? What if they also have severe physical limitation? Then how am I supposed to? I'm going to be very candid about this. I can at least say to someone, let's say that they're from outside of our particular country. Point to, and we need to contact family. Point to the country where you're from. That can help, provided the person can point. If I give a person a map, how on earth? I mean, let's be real about this. Unless they have like a laser guided, there is eye modeling that is done. I don't want to diminish that. I'm just saying, if you don't have it readily available, but you want that information, how am I supposed to find that out? You can't say yes for the U.S. I mean, like, you could just say, blink once for United States and two for the rest of the world, or blink once for the Western Hemisphere and twice for the Eastern. Okay, now blink once for Europe versus twice for... Really? So there is significant limitation to this. And it's just a matter of how granular you're going to get. So that's why I say 60%. I'm like, you know what? That's what we can do in the moment. And it's not, I didn't say it's good. I didn't say it's perfect. I'm saying it's what we can do. If you have a choice between doing something and doing nothing, do something.
Yep, we've said that before on this show. Well, Black Bolt can't speak, so the idea of a vocal skit for the therapy session was going to be a lot of one-sided communication. So instead of doing that, we brought back our friend and fellow mental health avenger, Anna from Freudian Sips, to reprise the role of Medusa, and she's going to help us get Black Bolt on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Black Bolt. I'm Dr. Issues. And hello again, Medusa. Thanks for joining us to interpret. Normally I don't do this, but given the unique communication barriers here, it's helpful to have someone else.
Of course, Doctor. Good to see you again as well. Black Bolt and I appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
Please understand, no offense, but this is not meant to be a couple session. As an interpreter, your role is to make sure that Black Bolt statements are provided as clear as possible. Therefore, I'll be speaking and looking at him directly while you assist us. If there's anything that needs clarification, please let me know.
Yes, of course, Doctor. Black Bolt says thank you.
Great. Now, what can I help you with today?
Black Bolt says he wants to make strides with the world at large without disrupting his personal life.
That sounds reasonable, albeit a bit vague. I'm aware that you have a large role in your kingdom. Is there a particular aspect of your job that you're struggling with?
Black Bolt says that he detests the notion that society can't fix its own ills. My apologies. He says that he wants others to have more participation and involvement so he doesn't have to carry most of the burden himself.
That makes sense. I emphasize appropriate delegation all the time. Is there something that prevents you from having that kind of balance you envision?
He says there are too many functions to go through on a daily basis that are set to the royal family by default. Tradition weighs us all down, especially his wife.
Well, based on what I know, although there's still a right to confidentiality for the details, I can say that dovetails well with your personal relationships.
Black Bolt says that he is thankful someone finally understands. Wait, I'm sorry, I need to start over. Black Bolt says that he is thankful I finally understand him better now.
Huh?
Black Bolt wants to focus on the loss of his free time. He is draining himself to serve the people and serve his family.
Oh, that took a bit of a turn. I'm sorry that things have been such a struggle. What are your coping mechanisms? Like, how do you recover?
Black Bolt says he enjoys time for literature and taking walks with me.
Aw, that's so kind. But, whoa, he's shooting a glare at you right now. What's up?
He says that is not quite what he meant. He likes walking alone, thinking about me. I apologize. He's going so fast now, it's hard to keep up.
You seem very angry. Do we need to take a break?
I'm just fine, Doctor.
No, I meant Black Bolt. Like I said, please just tell me what he's saying.
Black Bolt says that things aren't the way they are supposed to be right now. This is slightly frustrating. If I weren't his queen, I would be somewhere less pleasant at the moment.
Are you censoring him? I would strongly advise you not do that for the sake of any hope of progress.
We apologize. As in the royal we, because I have done nothing wrong. Black Bolt wishes to have an independent... No!
An independent what?
An independent point of view on how his emotions can be controlled. Oh my!
Well, I recognize that finger and what that means. It's obvious that there's a breakdown here. Perhaps we could all use a timeout.
No, let's continue speaking. After all, it's good to get things off one's chest, right, dear?
No words necessary, and I do mean that literally. Let's try this one more time.
Black Bolt says...
Nope. No way. I see where this is going. I was a fool to think this wasn't a couple session, all right? No interpreter. Black Bolt, sir, I have no problem with you as a patient, but I also realize that I have to put you in the most awkward situation imaginable, and I'm sorry. we have to find another way to do this. I know you can write. Maybe secure email and text instead. Let's hassle that way.
Black Bolt says he wants to keep trying. Wait, keep trying how? I don't know how that works.
What is it?
So, this is me talking. He wants to make sure that you know I mean well, but tell you how I felt after my last session with you. But I don't want to make it about me. That's not the point.
So he's asking you something. I mean, that's fine. Ultimately, it's up to you.
Black Bolt says this interaction is a microcosm of how he feels every day. Bottled up, locking away a part of him that no one ever gets to know because it's too dangerous. He has to be a statesman as well as a man of action without proper outlet.
What?
He wonders if that's what childhood was supposed to be.
I don't have an answer for that. Your experience is so beyond what I could imagine. And to have someone be your voice from day one, always, like just reified, monitored, scrutinized, manipulated, and yet bearing witness to the multitude of variants that humans and inhumans, the way they describe it, knowing full well that'll never be your lot in anything that goes on. Man, I'm going to tell you, that's strength, but it's also a potential for agony. Dude, I'll just say it. You're quite the being, Black Bolt. You're the definition of life's beautiful struggle. And I thank you for what you endure.
Black Bolt says, wait, Doctor, I won't interpret what he is saying.
Did I do something to offend him?
No, please understand. What is about to happen is, in a perverse way, the highest honor he can bestow upon you. And we have means to make amends.
I have no clue what you're talking about right now.
I'll let him explain for himself.
For himself? Wait, what?
Thank you.
I truly appreciate the definition of peace and quiet now more than ever.
Never before has someone said so much with so little. Small words, big impact.
What?
I said small words, big impact.
What? I'm sorry. This is going to be very difficult because that entire session just threw off my entire sense of hearing. So I apologize if I'm blowing out people's speakers right now. Imagine that and then put it through the megaphones Bart Simpson style in that one episode of The Simpsons. And yeah, you'll get what I'm experiencing right this moment.
When you were doing the what?
Yes.
What? I had 1 beer. What? 2 beers. What? 3 beers. What? What? It's amazing 20 years later and they're still doing that to people cutting promos. Anyway, recommended reading. So again, we've got 2 possibilities here. 1, the original Inhumans introduction in Fantastic Four, the Lee Kirby stories. Can't get better than that. Also, the Paul Jenkins J. Lee Inhumans run. Both very big stories involving the Inhumans, the royal family, Black Bolt. I believe we referenced them when we did the Medusa episode as well. Oh, and again, apologies. Thank you, Anna. You can check out Freudian Sips. Basically, just look for Freudian Sips. I believe they're Freudian Sips Pod based on social media. And they're fellow mental health Avengers. And we will be getting together with them sometime very, very soon. I put the clarion call out and we've got an amazing topic that we're very excited to roundtable with our fellow mental health Avengers. So look for that coming up. So next episodes, Echo, and then the 150th episode anniversary spectacular, and then number 4 from the Umbrella Academy. So we're going to have some good stuff there. So again, reminder, get those questions in for the mailbag /AMA for the 150th episode. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Capes on the Couch. Our website is capesonthecouch.com, and it's got all of our episodes up there in addition to some other stuff. And if you like what you hear, You can subscribe and support the show. Patreon.com/Capes on the Couch. $1, $3, or $5 a month unlocks you additional content, early access, uncensored material, bloopers, a whole bunch of good stuff. And so that's going to wrap it up. So, Doc, it's time for your pun now.
Okay. So everything's recovered. I get it. Just to let you know, a bolt can be an uncontrolled, specific form of energy, usually electricity, that can create a massive amount of destruction in a fraction of a second. It can also be a small device that actually is used to be a fixture in the structure that is necessary for heavy support. Whichever way you decide to use that in your life is up to you.
Ooh, not a pun, but food for thought. I like that. That's a mic drop moment ending the episode. So, for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.